Hi, all. This is Jan of the Jan Files. I hope you will support me by subscribing to my YouTube channel. I would really appreciate that. Today, I'm going to go back over Epstein, and there were two things I want to talk about. I just want to quickly, hopefully I can do it quickly, go over some of the information I've covered in the past in my other videos about who was surrounding Trump and Epstein at the time, and the fact that this was very well known. The behavior in terms of what was going on in the modeling world was known to insiders, okay? This was the way it was. And the second thing I want to talk about is kind of where we are right now with the Epstein files. But the first thing is Donald Trump and Epstein were best friends. They met in about 1983 or something like that. In 1988, there was a special on CBS, one of the things they covered, it was a program called American Girls in Paris. You can still find it. And it was with, who was the interviewer? Oh, God, no. Anyway, I'll probably come up with it soon. Anyway, you can find it online. The program was about Jean-Luc Brunel and a modeling agency in Paris that was basically a home for young American girls who wanted to go and become an international model. It was their dream. Their parents would send them. The agency would say, well, we'll arrange from a place to sleep for them. We'll take care of them. We'll watch out for them. Well, no, that's not what happened. Jean-Luc Brunel was known for raping women, young girls. He would often tell them, if you don't do this, like if you don't go out with this guy, I'm not going to get you another job, right? Another modeling job. And that was the kind of exchanges that were happening. And of course, a lot of these young girls had no idea what to do. And also you come from that place when you're that age, am I being, is this what's supposed to happen? Like, you don't know, right? And obviously some might be sophisticated enough to know, but a lot of them didn't, and then at the point they're in a place where they have no power. So anyway, this was put on 60 Minutes. Again, it was like American Girls in Paris, and it was a big thing, but France did nothing about it, because this was taking place in Paris, right? But this program, 60 Minutes, back in the day when they had integrity, was a big deal. So this was a big deal. This was 1988. Now, at that point, Trump and Epstein were like best buddies. Jean-Luc Brunel eventually had another expose, I think it was by the BBC. Anyways, he had to leave Paris. He came here being New York, the United States, and he was it's like crazy. He started a new modeling agency, and Epstein gave him $1 million to do so. Now, Epstein obviously knew what he was doing, clearly. I can't imagine, and how could Donald Trump not? Because Donald Trump loved the modeling world. He loved being around all those beautiful girls and beautiful women. It's why he, bought Miss USA and bought Miss Teenage USA, et cetera, et cetera. He loved the modeling world. The modeling world is some of it. Obviously, there's a level that's whatever. But anyway, the modeling world, at least at that point, was abusive. Abusive to the young girls. From everything from trafficking them to, giving them drugs to making sure they were skinnier than anybody should be. I mean, it's just a pit, a shithole, right? But Donald Trump loved the modeling world. He loved to hang out. That's why he bought this, as I said, the two pageants. But he also liked this guy by the name of John Casablancas. John Casablancas had elite models. And elite models discovered at those days the supermodel, right? That was a big deal. It was a new thing. Naomi Campbell, et cetera, all along those lines. That was John Casablancas. And he was also a pedophile, well known for liking very young girls, and actually eventually married, I believe, a 17-year-old. He's long gone. He died. But this was all part of the world that Donald Trump was in. He used to go, and it was one of the judges for Casablanca and the sexiest girl alive, or sexy, whatever the thing. And he judged more than one of those contests. Donald Trump also is known for judging a contest was just him and another guy in a room with all little girls. When I say little girls, I mean 15, 16 years old, or even 17. But that's part one of this. The second part is Roy Cohn. Roy Cohn was his mentor. I've mentioned this before. He was his mentor. He was the attorney for Senator Joseph McCarthy back in the 50s during the quote, pink scare. And he was also a pedophile. He was a homosexual, but he was also a pedophile. And how could it be? Because this guy was so close to Donald Trump. Donald Trump had two primary relationships in his life with pedophiles. Okay, so let's just start with that. So this idea on any level that Donald Trump didn't know what was going on is not to be believed. And what we're seeing now is clearly that he is covering up, and that whatever he's covering up, given all these awful things he's doing to distract us, is at some point this cover-up his cover is going to be blown. Okay? It's only a matter of time, in my opinion. And I doubt it will likely not come through the Justice Department, because the new news is the Justice Department also filed a letter with the judge that Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie asked to have set a special master in place, which is another judge typically who goes through the material, because they don't think that the DOJ is correctly redacting the material. They're taking too long, blah, 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 blah. And so the DOJ filed a letter saying that Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie, as congresspeople, had no standing. They also said they were doing their best to get out the files, and it was very slow because of making sure they did the right redactions. Well, that's hysterical, because it's clear they're not doing the right redactions. It's clear it's an entire farce. This is just more delay. And so now put that there. The thing he also did, I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, I gather Donald Trump used a trading company, an oil trading company owned by one of his supporters, to sell $500 million worth of Venezuelan oil. Now, that may, you usually think, well, what has that got to do with Epstein, right? He put that money in Qatar, in a bank account in Qatar. United States money was moved to Qatar, which makes no sense. It's completely unprecedented and should raise flags for everyone. Why on earth's name would you give another country access? Because we all know you can freeze things in a bank, right? We know that because we've done it. So Donald Trump has $500 million there. For what purpose? Think about it. What's the purpose of him being there? I believe, and I heard it last night from somebody when I was half asleep, so I know I'm not the only one, is that he's preparing. I think that he knows, and this is all speculation, right? I think he knows that it's going to come out. I think he knows how horrible it is, and I think he's covering all bases. I think he's preparing, if it comes out and it looks like he's going to be impeached or something else might happen, that sayonara. I think he leaves. I think he wouldn't take any more sitting at a table, in a courtroom. I don't think he wants anything to do with any being accountable. So that's my theory, okay? So these last two things happened in the past couple days. And we have to pay attention to everything. So we can't keep our eye off what's going on in Minneapolis. We have to stay focused on that. We have to stay focused on the Epstein files. We have to stay focused on the level of corruption that is going on within his administration. And we need to stay focused on what the hell the judiciary is doing. Because I don't know if they're going to save us. It may have to be the military. I don't know. But I can only tell you this. It's up to us still to be on the streets, to be making phone calls, to do what you can. And I'm not telling you to put yourself in harm's way. And everybody has to do what they're comfortable with, but you can do something. So when people say, oh, I don't know what to do, I really can't do anything, I'll vote. Oh, good, great. We may not get the opportunity to vote, folks. So I suggest you learn how to pick up a phone and call senators in the House about what's coming up. And what's coming up is whether we fund or defund ICE, not the police. ICE is not the police, but they're up for funding. And so far, I've seen more than one Democrat say, well, we need to put more restrictions on them, which is mind-boggling to me. They're already breaking laws and nobody's doing anything. So you think by putting restrictions on them, who is going to enforce that? And I know I said this before, so I don't want to keep. But anyway, so there are things you can do, folks. And you must pay attention, and you must pay attention to some of these things that may not seem, well, what does one have to do with the other? Look at the big picture. Take care.